A tale of fate's unexpected twists in small-town Pennsylvania. The metal key clicked in the supply closet lock, the sound echoing through Sarah Cooper's chest like a finality she wasn't ready to face. Her hands trembled as she gripped her crutches tighter, the fluorescent lights of the Allentown office building casting harsh shadows across her face. "How dare he?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the empty corridor. Marcus Reynolds, the powerful CEO of Reynolds Trucking, had fired her while she was still on medical leave. After all her dedication, all the early mornings and late nights keeping his precious office spotless, this was how he repaid her. The betrayal stung worse than the pain radiating from her broken ankle, still trapped inside its cast. She hobbled down the hallway, her mind racing. The kids were at her mom's apartment in Reading. Dylan was probably helping with dinner while Emma worked on her homework. The thought of their faces made her throat tighten. "They can't do this to me," she muttered, adjusting her grip on the crutches. "It's not legal. It's not right." The weight of everything crashed down on her shoulders. Tyler was in prison after that horrible accident. The bills were mounting, and now this. She stopped in front of his office door, staring at the polished nameplate. Marcus Reynolds, CEO. No. She wasn't leaving without telling him exactly what she thought. With newfound determination, she turned back toward the executive suite, her crutches clicking against the tile floor. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, painting orange stripes across the empty desks of the accounting department. "Mr. Reynolds?" she called out as she approached his office. The door was slightly ajar. "I need to speak with you about my termination." No answer. Sarah hesitated before pushing the door open wider, and her world tilted sideways. Marcus Reynolds lay sprawled on the floor, a pool of blood spreading beneath his head from a deep, gaping wound. And standing over him, rifling through his desk drawers, was Victoria Reynolds, his wife and the office manager. A triumphant smirk curved her perfectly painted lips. Sarah froze. Victoria's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. "Cooper?" Her voice was laced with fury. "What the hell are you doing here? You were fired!" But Sarah's medical training from her high school volunteer days kicked in fast. "He needs help," she said, already moving toward Reynolds' unconscious form. "We need to call 911. "Get out!" Victoria shrieked, panic seeping into her voice. "This is none of your business." But Sarah had already pulled out her phone. In a blur of motion, she maneuvered herself between Victoria and the door, then slammed it shut, twisting the lock before Victoria could reach it. "You little—" Victoria pounded on the door. "Open this right now." Sarah ignored her. She dropped carefully to her knees, her ankle screaming in protest as she pressed shaky fingers to Reynolds' neck. Searching for a pulse. It was weak. Blood matted his silver hair, his breathing shallow. Her eyes flicked to the shattered glass door of his bookcase. The shards scattered across the carpet told a violent story. She relayed everything to the 911 operator, pressing a cold bottle from Reynolds' office fridge against the wound to slow the bleeding. "Hold on, Mr. Reynolds," she whispered. "Just hold on." The scene erupted into chaos when the EMTs arrived. As they worked swiftly, checking vitals and preparing Reynolds for transport, Sarah positioned herself between them and Victoria, her instincts screaming that something was deeply wrong. "I'm going with him," she announced. "Like hell you are," Victoria snapped. But before she could say more, a police officer appeared, notepad ready. "Ma'am, where were you when this happened?" Victoria went pale. I have to make some calls." She turned on her designer heels and practically ran from the office. Sarah gritted her teeth. Coward. An EMT helped her into the ambulance as Reynolds was wheeled out on a stretcher. Sirens blared as they sped toward St. Luke's Hospital, the flashing lights illuminating a new revelation. Something she hadn't noticed before. A thin gold chain peeked out from beneath Reynolds' shirt. The pendant caught the light, and Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She had seen it before. Her mother had one just like it. Sitting in the sterile hospital waiting room, Sarah's mind drifted to 7 years ago, to Tyler Mitchell. She could still hear his voice, see the way he smiled at her on graduation day. "You look beautiful," he had said, his Letterman jacket draped over her shoulders. "Marry me," she had laughed. "Tyler, we just graduated." I'm serious. He dropped to one knee right there in the school parking lot, the spring air thick with possibility. 2 weeks later, she discovered she was pregnant. Tyler had kept his word, marrying her in a simple courthouse ceremony. But reality proved harsher than their dreams. The drinking had started slowly. Then it spiraled. Then came that fateful night. One drink became many. And then Mr. Peterson, the elderly cyclist, had never stood a chance. 5 years in prison. Emma cried for days. Dylan became withdrawn, taking on responsibilities no 8-year-old should bear. And now with Reynolds fighting for his life in the next room, Sarah wondered, how had life changed so drastically? The lab needs to speak with you, a nurse said, shaking Sarah awake. She sat up slowly. Is something wrong? The technician hesitated. Your blood type is quite rare. The match to Mr. Reynolds is unusually perfect. Are you two related? Sarah's hand instinctively went to her mother's pendant at home. Before she could respond, Reynolds groaned from the hospital bed. Cooper? His voice was weak. What are you doing here? You saved his life, the nurse cut in before Sarah could answer. Perfect blood match. Lucky she was here. Reynolds' eyes flickered. Your mother, he rasped. What's her name? Emily. Emily Blackwood. His face went pale. Before she was Emily Blackwood, his breath hitched. Was she ever Emily Winters? Sarah's heart pounded. How did you? I dated an Emily Winters, Reynolds whispered. 25 years ago. Sarah's world shifted beneath her feet. 6 months later, Victoria was behind bars, convicted of fraud, assault, and corporate embezzlement. Reynolds, no, Marcus, had spent those months reconnecting with the daughter he never knew he had. And now, as Emily Blackwood exchanged vows with the man she had loved and lost, Sarah stood beside her mother, watching as life finally came full circle. Marcus lifted a toast. To new beginnings, and to the strange ways life brings us where we're meant to be. Sarah touched the pendant at her neck, its twin resting against her father's chest. Some bonds, it seemed, were simply meant to be.